Well. It looks like ChatGPT lost its job to AI, specifically to Chinese company DeepSeek, which is absolutely hilarious. Welcome to Sloth News, the worst place to get your news because it's always late and slow. Last week, DeepSeek revealed their brand new AI model, R1, and this AI model has gone really viral. There's videos, news articles, everywhere. Everybody's covering it. They basically dunked on and embarrassed every big AI company. Well, specifically American AI companies. They're at the top of the app stores, overtaking ChatGPT. A lot of engineers are trying to figure out how this happened, how they pulled this off, and certain CEOs are smiling on the outside but dying on the inside. They also caused the stock market to drop $1 trillion. No big deal. But how did this happen? How did this model just show up out of nowhere and take over everything? And why are people freaking out about this model? Well, reason number one, it's a good AI model. Now there's two DeepSeek models, V3 and R1. Both models are V3. The main difference now is that R1 has a thinking step. It thinks before it answers. Now, funny enough, V3 came out like a month ago, but it got no mainstream attention. Only developers and researchers really cared about it.
Why didn't you cover it?
Because this is Sloth News, the worst place to get your news because it's always late and slow. Now, based off these benchmarks DeepSeek released, this R1 model is as good or sometimes even better than the best state-of-the-art AI models such as ChatGPT 4o or Claude. Now, benchmarks aren't always accurate, but the fact that it can perform similarly to these models is amazing because let me remind you, you have to pay to use these models. I'm looking at you, OpenAI. $200 a month is crazy. This leads to the next reason. Reason number two, it's cheap. It's super cheap to use and it was super cheap to make, allegedly. Apparently, it only took $5.6 million to train the model. Now, is that true? Who knows? But if it is, then that's a big deal because that's very cheap compared to these other big AI companies. And the best part about it is it was all just a side project to DeepSeek. So basically, they pulled a Tony Stark on AI.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave!
Now, there's also a third reason, the main reason why people are freaking out. Reason number three, it's open source, baby! Woo! Yeah, the cherry on top is that they made this model free to use with no limits. They open sourced it with an MIT license, and a lot of people are very happy about this because they now have access to a good AI model to use and modify for free, whether for personal use or commercial use. Who would have thought another company would release an open AI before OpenAI? Very funny. Breaking news, Alibaba came out with their own model called Qwen 2.5 Max, and it's already better than DeepSeek. This was 2 days ago. I'm late. This has been Sloth News, the worst place to... Breaking news, another Chinese AI model called Kimi K 1.5 came out, and it apparently also beats GPT 4o1, and it came out last week. This has been Sloth News, the worst place to get your news. Breaking news, I can't do this. DeepSeek released a new model called Janice. That's all. I can't keep up. This video is going to be outdated once it comes out. Now back to the old news, DeepSeek. Now why are these reasons causing everybody to freak out? Well, DeepSeek proved we can make a good AI with less money, less computing power, and make it open source. The fact that it's open source means that giant companies like OpenAI don't really have an advantage anymore. Why use a model that's $200 a month when we have this model that's almost as good but free? And not only that, since it's open source, we can install this model locally without any restrictions, without being tracked, and we can train it with our own data to make it specialized. Now, something else you should realize, and my homie NeetCode brought this up, and now OpenAI is starting to cry about it, DeepSeek may have used ChatGPT to help train R1 by using its inputs and outputs without permission. This is against OpenAI's terms of service, which is pretty funny since OpenAI uses a lot of data from the internet without permission to train ChatGPT. But this is a pretty big deal because this means no matter what brand new model OpenAI creates, whether GPT-5, 03, 069, whatever they want to name it, we can just use the inputs and outputs of those models to create our own open source version because DeepSeek proved that you can, and they showed us how they did it. This basically prevents any AI company from having an advantage. In other words, from this beautiful YouTube comment on Fireship's video, capitalism just got outsmarted by open source. Now you're probably wondering, how do I use this beautiful model? Well, it's actually pretty simple. You can just go on their website, sign up and use it there, or just use the mobile app, but be careful because they're saving all your information, just like other companies. But hey, you probably use TikTok and you installed Rednote, so you probably don't care. Enjoy it before it gets banned. Now, if you don't want to be tracked and be used for training data, you can run it locally without an internet connection, unlike other AI models. If you want to install it locally, you can use Ollama and use R1's distilled versions.
What does distilled mean?
Oh, right. A distilled model is essentially a smaller, more efficient model that has been trained by a larger model. You can think of it like a teacher-student type of thing. The benefits to this is that we need less resources to use this model, and it clearly shows here. I mean, 9 gigabytes is way better than 400 400 gigabytes. Now, even though these models are smaller, that doesn't mean they're worse. These distilled models perform nearly as well as the larger models. Of course, there's cases where the smaller model isn't good enough, but for 99% of your problems, it'll get the job done. But if you want to use the whole thing, you're gonna need 400 gigabytes of VRAM. Yeah, that's a lot of GPUs. Yeah, so pick the model that your computer can handle and run the command in your terminal. Now, if you don't like the terminal and you want a GUI, you can use something like Chatbox AI and combine it with Ollama to have a free AI model and a nice little GUI. Now, let's talk about how DeepSeek pulled this off. How does DeepSeek even work? I'm not gonna dive too deep into the technical details because I'm pretty dumb. You should check out these videos here if you want to know more about the technical details, but I'll at least give you the important parts. R1 uses a different method from other AI models. AI models like GPT have a 3-step process to training: pre-training, supervised fine-tuning, and reinforcement learning. The key part here is the supervised fine-tuning. This is what these models rely a lot on. The AI is trained with label data that has examples of how the AI should respond. You can basically think of it like memorizing the answers and then checking with another human or AI to see if they got it correct. Now, DeepSeek does this differently. They completely removed the supervised fine-tuning part and instead relied more on reinforcement learning.
What's reinforcement learning?
Alright, it's basically a machine learning method that simulates trial and error. It uses a reward system to teach AI, and in reinforcement learning, they want to get the highest reward. Why is this important? R1 uses trial and error to get the correct answer just like a real human would, to the point where it reached similar results as GPT. You can even see the thought process R1 is using when you chat with it, unlike other AIs. Now, once again, I simplified this a lot. I skipped over a lot of steps on how DeepSeek works, but I gave you the important parts and the main differences between both models. If you are interested in learning about how DeepSeek works, check out these videos right here or read the paper. It's open source after all. And if you're interested in AI and programming in general, you can check out today's sponsor, Brilliant. Brilliant is a learning platform where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and AI. Not only that, but Brilliant is a learning platform that's designed to be effective. Each lesson is filled with hands-on problem solving that lets you play with concepts, a method that's proven to be 6 times more effective than watching lecture videos. Plus, all the content on Brilliant is crafted by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, Google, and more. And these lessons will also help you build your critical thinking skills because you're going to be problem solving, not memorizing. You all probably want to learn how AIs like ChatGPT work. Well, don't worry, Brilliant has lessons on exactly that. They have a course called How LLMs Work, where you get to peek under the hood of large language models like ChatGPT to understand the concepts of how they work. And a lot of you also want to learn about programming. Luckily for you, Brilliant has a lot of programming courses. They have courses for Python where you can start building programs on day 1 with their built-in drag and drop editor. You can also learn essential coding fundamentals from loops and variables to nesting and conditionals. And Brilliant will also help you think like a programmer, where you'll start writing complex programs to build games and applications. So if you'd like to try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/thecodingsloth or scan the QR code on the screen. You can also click the link in the description. And if you scan the QR code or click the link, you'll get a 20% off an annual premium subscription. This has been Sloth News, the worst place to get your news because it's always late and slow.